Today is December 5th. Today's quote is, "This is not Vaisnava." And this is an amazing quote. And I will tell some more stories that relate to this. This is so important. Maybe this even goes against your understanding of Krishna consciousness. Or maybe not entirely against it, but maybe not, you weren't thinking exactly in this way. But this is amazing. Pay attention. You're going to like this. The temple president was having personal trouble, and the leaders and devotees, rather than helping him, drove him out of the temple. In other words, they wanted a new president. Prabhupada said to those leaders and devotees, "This is disgusting. This is not how Vaishnavas behave. You knew so-and-so was crying out in Maya. You knew he needed your help, and you let him sit in the corner and ignored him. This is not Vaishnava behavior. A true Vaishnava would take him by the hand earlier on, so this would not have taken place." In other words, Prabhupada's saying, this devotee had difficulty, and rather than help him in the difficulty, you just wanted to get rid of him. Just, we don't want you, go away. And you have to understand, this was a senior devotee who had been working sincerely as a temple president, working very hard. But he had fallen into Maya. And so, apparently, from this story, he was being ignored. And so people were talking about him, how much in Maya he is, and how poor a job he's doing, or how he can't do the job as temple president. Rather than going to him and saying, how can we help you? We see you're having trouble. So Prabhupada was saying they were condemning him and pushing him out. I was in Detroit in 1975, and a similar thing was happening. The temple president, his sadhana wasn't so good. We didn't see him at Mangalartik that often. We didn't know if he was chanting his rounds, and the rumor was he wasn't. He'd been temple president there for many years. Prabhupada really liked him. The temple was well maintained. The deities were beautifully taken care of. And this temple president was basically the head pujari. And they wanted to replace him with another devotee. And they did that without Prabhupada's permission. He was so upset. Prabhupada wanted rectification. He wanted help. He didn't like pushing people out. Now there's another story. I don't know if I've told this before. This is an amazing story. It was actually the same devotee who they pushed out as temple president. Later on, this devotee took charge of the restaurant. And at some point, he wanted to make that restaurant his own, so the devotees brought him to Prabhupada when Prabhupada was visiting. And they talked. And Prabhupada's asking him, why, if everything belongs to your spiritual master, you're claiming this restaurant? And he's saying, no, Prabhupada, I want this to be mine. And Prabhupada actually let him have it. That's amazing. And prior to this, the devotees were discussing this with Prabhupada and saying, should we take him to court? And Prabhupada said, if we take him to court, it will ruin our bhakti. It will ruin our devotional service. What did Prabhupada mean? Well, we can understand from this Leela what Prabhupada meant. If you act like a non-devotee, it's going to ruin your bhakti. What a valuable lesson. He said, you can't take another devotee to court. This devotee has sincerely served for so many years. This is not the way we deal with devotees. Of course, you might say in some cases, we've had to do this with child abuse and other illegal activities. So I'm just relating a general principle. You're going to have to consider how to apply it. The general principle is, if you act as or with the mentality of a non-devotee, it's going to destroy you. So in that situation, Prabhupada said, no, you can't. Now, something even more confusing perhaps to us is there was another scenario, and it all took place in the same temple. This temple just has this energy. And the devotee who started this temple, he fell away from Krishna consciousness. And when he fell away, he left the temple with all the money, and he tried to acquire that property for himself. And the devotee said, Prabhupada, should we have him arrested? And Prabhupada said, no, he's my disciple. We can't put my disciple in jail. So even though he took the money, it was more of an internal affair. It wasn't like he molested another person and that involved the whole family, and they would want it, and they would expect us to report him, or they would want a case and so forth. There wasn't any external party to satisfy. It was just the devotees. What do they want to do with this person? And Prabhupada said, no, we can't do that. So again, he's telling us what is the behavior of a Vaishnava. And so it's so interesting what Prabhupada's saying. You could ruin your bhakti when you don't act as a Vaishnava. So take that thought with you and think about times you may be tempted to say and do things which are not what Vaishnavas should be saying and doing, or think in the past. Times you did things that Vaishnavas don't do. And remember this statement, if we don't act as a Vaishnava, then it can ruin our bhakti.